Science has long explained the human predilection for horror stories. Biology? The emotion of fear stimulates the production of endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, which is why we feel curiously good despite getting the bejesus scared out of us. What they haven't explained is why tales of demonic possession seem to have royalty status. Perhaps it's the fact that everyone is a candidate for possession, as odd as that sounds, which automatically ups the fear factor and therefore the rush of the narcissistic hormones. Here are the top 10 creepy stories of demonic possession ever told in the history of this dark, harrowing phenomenon. Number 10, Amy Stamitis. Amy Stametis was living a normal life as a med flight nurse at the Baptist Health Medical Center in Little Rock, Arkansas. She had a loving husband who supported her in everything and kids who looked to her as their hero and best friend. One day she leaped from the second story of her Circe home, and her life fell crashing to the ground, broken as the bones in her body. She is paralyzed from the waist down, unable to work and indulge in her noble passions. She still swears she didn't jump out of that window that day. It all began on a typical day at work when Stamitis was attending to a burn patient. After leaving the room to return to her station, she found herself wandering aimlessly in the halls of the hospital. A marathoner, she would soon lose her ability to walk straight. Doctors blamed it on epilepsy, schizophrenia, and porphyria, a rare chemical imbalance. But Pentecostal evangelist Sidney Lawson saw something else: demons. As soon as she heard of Stamitis' story, Lawson approached the family, buckled down to work, and banished the forces for good. Number 9. Clara Germana Seal. In 1906, 16-year-old Clara Germana Seal entered into a contract with the devil and confessed to it. She said she made at Maryhill School in Umitsito, South Africa, where she lived since her parents' death. Weeks after the pact, Seal began ripping her own clothes, speaking ancient languages, and making guttural, beastly sounds. During her exorcism, her skin boiled in contact with holy water, and her body levitated several times before the eyes of 170 witnesses. According to an account, Seal writhed and squirmed across the ground, her body leaping out completely at one point as though becoming the slithering serpent. Based on another account, she actually turned into it, if only for a few seconds. After 2 days of grueling exorcism, the girl was liberated from the devil. The pact was broken on September 11th, 1906, but not without almost killing her and the priests who were determined to salvage her soul. They succeeded, for the demons never returned. Number 8. George Lucan's. On May 31st, 1778, a woman named Mrs. Sarah Barber traveled to the Yatton village in Medip, Somerset, and summoned Reverend Joseph Esterbrook of Temple Church. She said she knew a man she felt was afflicted with an odd infirmity, a tailor named George Lucan's, who would sing and scream with different voices that barely sounded human. Because of this bizarre behavior, Lucan's eventually ended up at St. George's Hospital, where he was confined for over 5 months. He was pronounced incurable by the doctors. Mrs. Barber, the entire community, and Lucan's himself believed he was bewitched. He even declared he had 7 demons in his body that required 7 clergymen to expel. On Friday the 13th of June 1778, 7 clergymen led by Reverend Easternbrook cast out 7 demons in a strenuous ritual where Lucan's sang Te Deum, an important Christian hymn. In reverse, became increasingly violent and claimed he was the devil. Once delivered, his mood immediately changed as he praised God and recited the Lord's Prayer before thanking the priests who saved him. Number 7. Gottlieben Dietz. In 1842, Germany, a 28-year-old woman became the center of attention in her neighborhood when strange things happened in her home. Gottlieben Dietz would soon slide in and out of trances, but her possession wouldn't become so patent until Lutheran pastor John Christoph Blumhardt began a rite of exorcism. Titus turned extremely violent and vomited all kinds of matter, from nails to blood. Her body convulsed, levitated, and disappeared behind shadows while she screamed about hell and its occupants. In her lucid episodes, she would ask Jesus to save her from her tormentors. Finally, in 1843, Pastor Blumhardt freed the woman from her spiritual captors, and she reported feeling an overwhelming sense of peace. Her demons had left, and she happily announced it to everyone by explaining Jesus is victor. Pastor Blumhardt went on to report her case to the church as a ghost fight, and Titus' loud cry at her moment of healing became the pastor's epigram. Number 6. Marcerica Irina Cornicke. In January 2005, a 23-year-old woman named Cornicke joined the Tenacu Monastery in Romania. Not long after, she started exhibiting strange, erratic behavior, leading to her confinement at the local psychiatric hospital. By April, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but her brother had another explanation. He claimed she saw Satan himself entering his sinister body, which meant that his sister was in demonic possession. With monastery priest Friar Daniel Petri sharing the same view, an exorcism was immediately in order. Cornicke herself believed she was possessed and begged the nuns to strap her down and help her. Chained to a cross, she embottled novice was anointed with holy oil and kept in the church for 3 days. She was then untied and given food before fainting and eventually expiring in an ambulance. Her death put the priest and 4 nuns in jail for murder and depriving a person of liberty. A 2005 autopsy report said Cornicke died of dehydration, exhaustion, and lack of oxygen. In 2014, experts confirmed that she had an overdose of adrenaline in the ambulance, which caused her death. Number 4. Annelise Michel. Born to a devout Catholic family in Bavaria, West Germany, Annelise Michel was as religious as a young woman could be. Annelise had a history of mental illness, but once her symptoms wriggled out of control despite strict medication, she knew she could only be possessed. Her first experience was at the age of 16 when she completely blacked out at school and walked around in a seeming trance. When she developed hallucinations and delusions, she decided to seek the help of the Catholic Church. Despite repeated rejections from the bishop, Michel finally received an exorcism in 1975 through local priests, Ernest Holt and Arnold Renz. By this time, her condition had plunged into the unthinkable. She would strip herself naked, perform around 400 squats every day, and even bark like a dog for days. After 11 months, she died of malnutrition and dehydration. Her 2 exorcists were charged and sentenced to 6 months in jail for negligent homicide for failing to call a medical doctor. Her parents were also charged but spared from punishment, the judge ruling that they had suffered enough. Number 4. Clarita Villanova. After her spiritualist mother's death, Provinicana Clarita Villanova ventured into the Philippine capital of Manila in search for her birth father and a job. That she would end up in jail for vagrancy was the farthest from her mind, but nothing prepared her for what came next. 2 demons biting into her skin. When experts declared her mentally sound, the more the public was convinced she was possessed. The woman's story made the rounds worldwide until it caught the attention of an American pastor named Lester Sumrall, who instantly called himself to the mission and flew to Manila to help. On May 19, 1953, Sumrall met Villanova for the first time in a meeting marked by blasphemous statements from the Bacolod native. When Manila Mayor Orsino Lacson heard about the woman, he asked to see her alone to witness the bite marks herself. He wasn't disappointed. And according to an account, Villanova's exorcism continued for 3 days before she was completely delivered from her demons, a total of 15. Finally free, she returned to her province, married a farmer, and had kids. Number 3. Elizabeth Knapp. Elizabeth Knapp was a 16-year-old servant at the household of Samuel Willard, a prominent reverend in the Church of Groton, Massachusetts during the 1670s. What made Knapp's possession unique from the others was Willard's scientific approach, a point of issue for the community, given the pastor's passionate teachings on damnation and divine obedience. From October 30th, 1671 until January 12th, 1672, Willard documented Knapp's deterioration, which had most of the characteristics found in other demonic possessions. Fits, hallucinations, body contourations, animal sounds, a deep voice meeting with the devil, and so on. On November 28th, Knapp had a fit that lasted for 48 hours, after which she remained in Cantanoa until December 8th. She confessed to being assaulted by the devil and having no recourse, but to make a pact with him. At this time, Willard said the devil talked to him through Knapp, calling him a rogue minister. Willard's next entry was dated January 10th, 1972, when the girl admitted that the devil had completely taken over her body. She had been quiet since January 15, and Willard decided to leave the matter to the more learned, aged, and judicious. Whatever happened to the servant girl has remained a mystery to this day. Number 2, Emma Schmidt. The world's most widely documented demonic possession that landed in the 1936 issue of Time magazine is that of Emma Schmidt, also known by her pseudonym Anna Eklund. Schmidt was an American woman born on March 23, 1882 in Switzerland and raised in a Catholic household in Marathon, Wisconsin. When she turned 14, she began talking to unspeakable sexual acts, and speech, and became adverse to everything blessed or religious, including churches. In 1935, it was revealed that her Aunt Mina, a purported witch and lover of her father, Jacob, had cast a spell on her through the food she prepared for the young girl. At the age of 30, Schmidt was exorcised for the first time by a Capuchin priest named Friar Theophilus Reinzinger. The same priest took 2 more attempts before the demons were finally cast out on December 23, 1912, at a Franciscan Sisters convent in Erlangen. Schmidt herself identified the demons that possessed her: Beelzebub, Judas, Mina, and her father Jacob. It is said that Jacob cursed his own daughter for refusing to have an incestuous affair with him. Schmidt managed to live a relative normal life after that and died peacefully at the age of 59. And number 1, Ronald Hunkeler. The Exorcist has been terrifying moviegoers since 1973, and largely because it is based on true events. In the late 1940s, Ronald Hunkeler, a 13-year-old boy mourning his spiritist aunt's death, started having strange encounters with the unknown. He would hear scratching sounds on the walls of his rooms and water dripping down pipes and walls. When his bed moved on its own, the parents sought the help of a local Jesuit priest, Friar E. Albert Hughes. The priest performed an exorcism on the boy in February 1949, but unfortunately it was unsuccessful. Soon scratches started showing on Ronald's body and his screams became louder than ever. The last straw came when he urinated all over his bed and started cursing at his 2 new attending Jewesses. His parents decided to bring him to the Alexian Brothers Hospital in St. Louis for more serious treatment. On April 8th, Monday after Easter, the attending priest covered the boy in holy relics, medals, and other blessed objects. He slowly returned from his trance, proclaiming he's gone, referring to Satan himself.